again, Internet. This is Dan right here, and once again, I'm joined by the immensely talented Morgan Strong Comnic.
Aloha, everybody. You
Aloha.
were you were so excited. I was stunned.
Well, I'm excited because we're down to the top five now in our little list here. So how can I not be excited about this?
Oh, well, I am too, but I was like, wow, your voice is so happy.
Because I know I'm about to talk about some of my favourite films of all time, and that makes you a little bit excited. But anyway, just for the benefit of those who have just come into this, this is video 3 in mine and Morgan's top 15 Pixar movies of all time. If you haven't seen the previous videos, we'll leave a link on the screen now and in the description. So probably best if you watch those videos, then come back to this one if you haven't already. But yeah, so far we've looked at numbers 15 to 6. In the first video we did numbers 15 to 11, and then 10 to 6. And I think it's been absolutely fantastic so far. Have you enjoyed yourself so far, Morgan?
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, so we are now in the top 5. These are the top 5 films that me and Morgan both agree are absolutely fantastic. And that's not to say that we think the other Pixar films aren't fantastic in their own way. We just feel that these particular films just have that something extra special that sets them above all the other Pixar movies. And I personally can't wait to talk about them. Are you excited as much as I am, Morgan?
I don't know if as excited, but I'm gonna get there because you are just so spunky. I love it.
Well, I'll try my best. So, before we start, again, I just want to say there may be spoilers ahead. So, if we mention the film and you haven't seen it yet, then do please watch at your own risk. We'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, but I'm just throwing that out there now. Anyway, so without further ado, let's move on to the top 5 Pixar movies. So let's go straight into number 5. And at number 5, we have The Incredibles. You know, it always makes me laugh because some of you probably know like the latest Fantastic Four movie has come out. I personally haven't seen it, but it's been panned critically. You know, basically every reviewer has been slating it left, right, and centre, and I think it's only got about what 10% or 11% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. Probably even lower
Oh,
now, but it's actually got me to thinking. It's like some people think the Fantastic Four as a franchise are cursed because the whole time the Fantastic Four have done a live action movie, it's never been a great film. So, but then someone made a point to saying that that actually has been a good Fantastic Four movie, and it's this movie, The Incredibles, which, funny enough, was actually partially inspired by the Fantastic Four, and yet somehow it seems to be a more acclaimed film than any Fantastic Four films. So, you know, go figure. But you know, it's hard not to like this movie because, you know, I love my superhero movies. You know, I'm a huge fan of Marvel comics and to a lesser extent DC comics. I love my Spider-Mans, my Thors, my Avengers, Batman's every so often, or even Watchmen, which is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. But Incredibles, well, as the name suggests, an incredible film because, you know, I love the way they've taken these characters that are superheroes, but at the same time they're a family, and you know they've got like real wants and needs. It's like you've got the overprotective father and like the mother that does everything, and like the two children that just want to like push themselves in their parents' eyes, and then you've got like the other guys like Nozone and the fashion designer who's absolutely hilarious. So it's an
Edna Mold.
sorry.
Edna Mold.
That's the one. Yeah, thank you so much for the
You're
name
welcome.
skip. But it's also quite good because in some ways this is also the first Pixar film where I kind of felt a bit sorry for the bad guy because for those of you who haven't seen it, the main villain in The Incredibles is a villain called Syndrome who doesn't really have any superpowers, but he's like a technological genius. He's got like all these weird devices and everything like that. I kind of felt a bit sorry for him because it's like I know he's a genocidal maniac, and I think this is one thing that we discovered in March Disney Villain Madness, where Morgan you discussed. There's that scene in the film where they look through all the lists of all the superheroes
Yeah.
that he's murdered, and
He is the first mass killer in a Pixar film.
well, exactly, yeah. But at the same time, you can't necessarily blame him for what he is because he was spurred by Mr. Fantastic. All he wanted to do was he wanted to just prove himself. He was as good for his idol, but Mr. Fantastic basically spurred him, and he became so disillusioned. And you have to wonder, what if Mr. Fantastic had been a bit better to him and like treated him well? Would he have turned out as he did? So you know, in many ways, he is kind of responsible for creating Syndrome. But he's certainly an absolutely horrific villain. I think probably the most horrific out of all the Pixar villains. And yeah, he gets his comeuppance at the end. In actual fact, I think he's actually one of the few Pixar villains to actually die in a film because one of the things that Edna
Mhm.
mentions is like no capes because capes are dangerous, and ironically, that's how he ends up getting killed. Incredibles to them says it all. That it is an incredible movie, a great take on the superhero genre, and just a really enjoyable film in its own way. And it more focuses on like the actual humans behind the superpowers. I think that's really how you do a good superhero movie. You focus on the characters rather than the powers.
Definitely. I do like The Incredibles a lot. It's different than the other pacing I think of Pixar films because I know the last name is Bird, the director, Bird.
Hmm.
And I think this is his only Pixar film to date, but he has confirmed a Incredibles 2 to come
Excellent.
out very soon. I don't know the date. He's had it written for a while, but he also was like, well, I don't know if a sequel is necessary, which I think is very big of him as a director to say because he's won lots of awards for The Incredibles.
Hmm.
But I think finally they made the sequel work where he's satisfied with it. But it worked. The formula is different than most Pixar films for me, but it worked. I'm not a very avid American type superhero comic type person. I'm more of a manga type hero
Yeah.
person. But The Incredibles, it's fun. There's family dynamics. The powers are interesting. Some of the tones were a little dark at times. Like, well, again, Syndrome being a mass murderer.
Hmm.
There's the part where the mom will tells Dash and Violet that these adults will kill you. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty bold statement for a kids film. But I mean, it's realistic, I guess, in their situation. And the guns, I don't think the guns are like razor stun guns. I think they were guns.
Hmm.
Which, if you think about it, it's again kind of a little darker. But I really like it. And I love Edna because the no capes. That's like the biggest thing on the internet I see. Like every time there's a hero with a cape, and there's a little meme of Edna going no capes. And is it Frozone, his friend?
Yeah, Frozone.
Frozone.
Yeah.
I really like him. I love the whole "Honey, where's my super suit?" I love that rant. It was not needed at all for the film, but it's perfect.
Was it Samuel L. Jackson that played as Frozone, or am I thinking of someone else?
Oh, I might be. I know the actor was very famous. Now I gotta look that up.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. Well, I'm sure there's probably someone in the comments that's probably going to be shouting at me now or typing it in now as we speak. But yeah, so I personally think this is actually a better Fantastic Four movie than any of the Fantastic Four films. So, so Marvel, get your act together, pull it out. Pixar can do it, right? Why can't you?
Yep, Samuel L. Jackson played Frozone.
Hey, fantastic! I was right. Excellent. Right, ready to move on?
I'm ready.
Okay, so next up, number 4. Again, if I was doing this list, I personally would have put this as my number 2, but number 4, Inside Out. I absolutely adored this movie, and based on all the reviews and everything it's had, I think everyone else feels the same way. And I think it's fair to say that Disney has their Frozen, Pixar has their Inside Out. I think basically Inside Out is their Frozen, but unlike Frozen, I don't think it's overhyped at all. I think it actually is an absolutely fantastic film, and I apologise to any Frozen fans that might be watching this, but if you're upset by it, I've got some advice. Let it go.
I was just gonna say that.
Anyway, so let's move on to Inside Out. I actually did get to see this at the cinema with my brother in 3D, and let's just say that the 3D glasses got very steamed up with because it really is one of the most emotional films I've ever seen. Well, it's to do with emotions, so duh. But so I've got a great story and fantastic characters, and I think my personal favorite character was Bing Bong. He was such a fun character, and what actually happens at the end? Oh my god! I think I'm actually getting teary. Oh, just thinking about it. It's like I really did love that. I mean, even when the trailer first came out, the minute when the scene at dinner, where it's like the mother and father are talking to Riley, their emotions inside their head are talking to each other. I knew instantly I was going to love this film because the trailer alone just made me laugh my butt off. It was absolutely fantastic. But and thankfully the rest of the movie is just like that. It is hilariously funny, but it does have some great emotion where it's needed. I actually also think it's a great metaphor for like growing up, and it really does capture the feels of like growing up as a younger person. And ultimately, I think it's a film to say that you shouldn't try and hide your emotions because like one of the interesting stories is the character of Joy, who's like trying to keep again bit of a spoiler here, so but we did give a spoiler warning at the beginning, so if you watched this far you should have expected by now, but it's the fact that Joy tries to keep sadness away from anything, but ultimately sadness ends up to be the one thing that saves Riley, and I think that's a great metaphor. It's like saying you shouldn't bottle your emotions up, you should really let it go, because if people are always going to be there to help you. So I mean, that's what I love. It had a great voice cast, a great mixture of emotion and sadness, and yeah, I actually think. And again, directed by Pete Docter, one of my favorite directors of all time. So if you haven't seen this film, I highly recommend it. It definitely, I would say, is the best film I've seen this year so far. And yeah, like I said, it probably is the Frozen of the Pixar franchise. Yeah, I would definitely give this one 2 thumbs up.
I also really enjoyed Inside Out. I personally thought it was just a little overhyped. Not too bad, just a smidgen. I also cried. the whole second half of the film.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, if you hadn't have cried at it, I would have probably called you a liar because I think everyone cried at
I
this film.
cried.
Yeah.
I cried. Me and my husband we were leaning on each other and we were tearing up a little bit together at one point. It encompasses growing up so epically. I don't even know how they do that, and I think that's why it broke my heart because I was like, I'm just watching my childhood die in front of me, basically.
Yeah.
And that's something that every kid goes through, and then that's hard to watch. So I think that's
Exactly.
why
Yeah.
it's a little bit lower, just because it was such a like punch me in the gut and the heart type of film.
Hmm.
But characters were great. It was a good story. I didn't like being sad though
Yeah.
for about 80 minutes of my life, just in a cushy chair where I buy $20 worth of popcorn. So definitely a good film. I know Dan was raving about it. I felt bad I didn't rave as much as him, but I really do enjoy it. So it's definitely deserves in the top 5 for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. And interestingly enough, Frank Oz of Yoda fame, he has a voice role in it actually at one point, believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he does one of the, I think he plays one of the security guards in there, but yeah, so he does like a quick voice role in that, which I thought was pretty fun, but yeah, fantastic movie. Let's move on to number 3. We have, and I have to say it in this voice just because you have, we have number 3.
Wally.
That was a really poor impression. I do apologise.
Oh, I loved it.
Anyway, yeah, Wally. What can I say about this film? This, I actually would say, of all the films on the list, is one of the more unique Pixar films because if you think about it, this is actually one of the few films on our list that has very little dialogue in it, especially like the first part of the film, because it's like I think literally there's no dialogue for like the first hour until they get to like the human ship, apart from like the little things between Wally and Eva. But it's like all the emotions carried across just by Wally himself and like his little mannerisms and the way he does stuff and the way he communicates with Eve. And I think that's absolutely fantastic and why it's one of the best films Pixar have ever made. 'Cause it's like they use very little dialogue. It's all just through the actions and emotions and the little movements. And there's just something that's quite sad about Wally for some weird reason. He kind of reminds me a little bit of E.T. actually. It's just like his little mannerisms, his little things. It's like you actually, even though you don't hear his voice as much, you can actually understand what he's going through. And the relationship between him and Eva is just like really, really fun. And it's like, well, I mean, I know they're robots and everything, so it should be a bit weird, like two robots having like a emotional connection. But I think it really worked. And the bad guy in it was basically Pixar's version of Hal from 2001, and he was mega creepy and everything like that. And it also had Jeff Garlin from Curb Your Enthusiasm fame as well as one of the main characters, which is pretty good. And Peter Gabriel over the end credits. So, you know, anything with Peter Gabriel and it gets the thumbs up in my books. Yeah, that's really what I have to say about one. I mean, it's almost kind of like, almost minimalist in its approach, even though it's like quite high budget. It's like, because there's very little dialogue. And so I think that's what makes it such an interesting film to watch. Is like, you actually feel rather than hear the characters, if that makes any sense.
No, I love Wally. He is adorable. And I think the first 20 to 30 minutes, other than their little Wally and Eva, it was Eva. My mom does that all the time.
Yeah.
Because she loves Wally too. There's no really a lot of spoken words. There's that song he plays on the VHS.
Oh yeah, the song from is it Hello Dolly, I think it is. Put on your Sunday shoes. There's lots of world out there.
And I think that helps a little bit with some of the emotions, and it's a little bit with the background noise because even though it's adorable, I think Pixar made a wise choice because just 20 minutes of no noise would have been kind of difficult. So they did. I mean, it just works so well. You can tell they worked really hard on it. The little cockroach, I like him. He's cute. And then, but it also has a very powerful message because those people up in the spaceship, they were so dependent on technology they didn't have to be active. Then they forgot how to be active.
Well, indeed, yeah.
And that's a powerful message because, I mean, I'm not saying we're getting to that point because they're 700 years in the future, but I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way. If we're so dependent on technology, I'm not going to be able to walk. And I gotta put all my food in a cup. And it sounds comical, but if you think about it, that's a pretty powerful message.
Yeah, but it's a message I think sci-fi's been investigating for like many years now. But in Wall-E, it's particularly important because we are so dependent on technology these days. I mean, you know, it's like can't take 5 steps out someone like an iPhone or an iPad or someone working something or moving around on some sort of like mechanical thing. So yeah, you're right. We are becoming so dependent on technology. It's going to get to the point where it's how can we cope without it? You know, it's almost like a drug for us.
Yeah, and seeing the Earth, I know seeing those scenes of the Earth just so messy and deserted when Wally's cleaning it, that spoke a lot. And how a
Hmm.
plant, little tiny plant, which we take for granted, was so powerful. I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, that's an awesome message for a robot
Yeah,
to give.
absolutely.
I have one little complaint with Wally. It's
Okay.
just a little too long, just a smidgen.
Okay.
That's because I know I was watching it with my dad, and it's actually an over 2 hour film, which for kids is a lot.
I suppose so. I mean, it never really had a problem for me. I mean, well, to be honest, I've seen all three Lord of the Rings films. Once you've seen all of them, then length of a
Okay.
film isn't really an issue. But no, I understand what you mean actually, because I suppose
For
2 hours.
kids,
Yeah, I think
it might be a little long.
that being said, Wreck It Ralph, that's near enough 2 hours long, and that's got. I think it depends what you fill in. As long as you've got stuff that's going to keep people interested, then most people are going to be able to like watch it at the end. But yes, I get your point. I mean, 2 hours probably in hindsight is a bit long for a kids' movie anyway.
And Mo is my favorite character. I love Mo. The wow, 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 Mo. Just gets him dirty. Ah! That's so me. I'm like, that's so me if I was a robot. So, I'm a Mo.
Excellent. Right. Well, that's Wally. Right. So we're down to the final two. So which films made the cut? Well, if you know your Pixar movies, you've probably already guessed already. But let's not keep you in suspense any longer. Number two, we have Toy Story 3. Woo!
Ooh, sunny side.
Yay! This, for me, and certainly for a lot of people, this is by far the best film out of all the Toy Story franchise. I mean, I know Toy Story 1 is the one that started it, or Toy Story 2, basically, they upped the game a bit more. As far as I'm concerned, Toy Story 3, that was like a game changer for like the series as a whole, and maybe even
Mm-hmm.
Pixar films full stop, because it had so many different themes and like so much darkness to it and so much adult growing up. It's almost like sort of, I guess you could say, rite of passage, like from going from childhood to adulthood, and it did it so perfectly, but it still that hits you right in the feels because you've grown up watching all these characters and then seeing them come out as they did. It's like, I mean, that last scene when they were about to go into the furnace and he thought they were going to die.
Oh.
I seriously, I was horrified at that because I was like, no, what are you doing? But thankfully, it did have a happy end in the end. But another reason I love this film is the character of Lotso. I mean, you
You love
probably.
your Lotso.
Oh, I love my Lotso. Yeah. Well, you guys probably remember when I did a March Disney Villain Madness. He was one of my characters I had in my villain team. But I just really felt so sorry for Lotso, and I really, really wish that he found some redemption at the end. But it's like, if you just think of his backstory, it's like, I mean, yeah, he was an absolute nasty so and so, and he actually had little to no redeeming qualities. But if you then look at his backstory, it's like Daisy's most beloved toy, and then when he was left behind, he tried so hard to get back to her, but when he did, he'd been replaced, and that just caused him to snap and go crazy. And basically, he dragged everyone down around him, like Big Baby and Chuckles. That even though they weren't replaced, he thought that, well, if I can't be happy, then they can't be happy. So he dragged them along with it. It's just so sad. It just makes you wonder what would happen if he was actually not left behind. Although, just on a side note, I don't know if you've ever watched this, Morgan, but there's a show I watched on YouTube called How It Should Have Ended, which basically looks at like, alternative endings of sometimes humorous endings of films. And
Mm-hmm.
they actually did one for Toy Story 3. This actually was a good point because it basically has that scene where Woody's confronting Lotso, and in this version, Woody just basically says to him, "Lotso, you may have been replaced, but think about it. You were Daisy's favourite toy. The reason that she replaced you with another Lotso is because she couldn't bear to be apart from you." And I'm thinking to myself,
Aw.
that's actually really true because that kind of makes it a little bit more depressing when you think about it, because it's like Lotso just didn't see the bigger picture. So it's like he thought he was being hurt, but in actual fact, it wasn't. Daisy was actually replacing because she loved him so much, and that makes that even sadder. And also, I've got to say that last scene where Andy's passing his toys across to that little girl. Oh my god, that just really hits you in the feel. I think anyone that's ever grown up having a favorite toy and having to like pass it on as you grow up, everyone knows how absolutely heartbreaking that is when you realise that that's the time when you have to grow up and you have to like put childish toys away and get on with everything. So it's perfect as far as the third movie goes, especially since, if you think about it, in trilogies, the third movie is usually considered the weakest, but I
Mm-hmm.
would actually say this is the strongest out of all of them because it's got an absolute perfect story and it's got a lot more darker and more mature themes. But at the end of the day, it is like a passing of the torch kind of film, and that's why I love it so much.
I don't know about you, but I don't give up my toys.
Yeah, well,
Forget
I
about
certainly
growing.
don't these days. Certainly not.
Oh, I can't really add anything. I mean, There's fun. The visuals are beautiful. You have the new characters blend so well with the old. Sometimes there's issues with that,
Mm.
but I love like the new characters. The porcupine.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
I love him because I'm a big Shakespeare person. The Barbie and Ken dynamic that was my little girl dream come true because I play with Barbies all the time. So I was like, "Ee!" So that was really cute. And of course, Barbie's played by Jodie Benson, who does Ariel from Little
Hey.
Mermaid. So it's a perfect film. Pixar, they couldn't have done any better, which I think is why people were so not happy for Toy Story 4
Hmm. Indeed.
initially because everybody was like, no, it ended perfectly. But I think it's okay now that they're gonna make it like a prequel or a side story.
Yeah. Well,
So
funny enough, I did actually see one of the side stories after that film, like the land that Toy Story forgot, or something like that, when they're playing with like these what they called like a cybernetic dinosaurs sort of thing, and that was quite fun actually because it sort of continued on from when the toys were like left with that little girl, and then she goes over to one of her friends' house. He's got this big collection of like cybernetic dinosaurs, but the dinosaurs are kind of like Buzz Lightyear. They actually do genuinely believe that they are fighters. They don't believe they're toys, but it's only a short film, like half an hour or so, but it's highly enjoyable. And honestly, I would so collect toys like that if they actually came out. I would, because they are just badass. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they continue on with like the Toy Story franchise, considering how perfectly it ended before. But we shall see. Keep our fingers crossed. Wait to
Oh,
happen.
I love the shorts. There's I think three shorts and two specials. The
Yeah.
Barbie and Ken on Vacation shorts my favorite. And the little girl's name is Molly.
Oh, yeah, that's great. As you probably gather, I'm actually terrible at remembering names, so that's why I love having Morgan nearby because she's basically an
Aw.
encyclopedia for everything Pixar, Disney, and anime and
Not
everything.
really. I remember stuff that is like, what? Why are you remembering that?
Yeah, she remembers the stuff that I forget, and probably vice versa. So.
There we go. There we
Excellent.
go.
Right, well, this is the moment of truth. We've counted down
Uh-oh.
number 15 to 2. So this, as far as we're concerned, is the greatest Pixar film of all time. And, to be honest, the only film that both me and Morgan were unanimous about. As you can probably guess, we have different opinions of where we probably would have put different films, everything. But this was the only film where we were united in about. And I'm so pleased that we are making this number one because this isn't just my favourite Pixar film of all time, it's my favourite animated film full stop. So here we go. Drum roll, please.
All right.
And the number one best Pixar film of all time is Up! Woo! Woohoo! Oh, I am so glad that we made this film number one because this film is just, oh my god. You say that Toy Story 3 was like a perfect film. This film is beyond perfect. It's just like, if you've seen this film, then you know that it's just brimming with emotion and just pure sadness. Even from at the very beginning, it's like that opening montage between Carl and Ellie.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure quite a few other people will probably think my goal is to see that film without crying, and as of yet, I've not succeeded. But it's just so incredible the way it's done. I've hardly ever seen a montage that has absolutely no dialogue, just music and like reaction from the characters. And even though they don't say anything, you perfectly see what's happening as it gradually starts from like a happy marriage to as they get older and older. And you can see the love between the two of them, and then that final scene at Ellie's funeral. I'm actually getting teared up as I'm just talking about it. Oh my. That really just shows the power of that scene. The fact that I can get teared up just by thinking about it. So, I think I just need a moment here, but yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
it's okay. I can talk for a minute.
I think I'm fine now. But anyway, that aside, I have to say I think the concept of it is absolutely fun. You know, the whole idea of like an old guy taking his house to Paradise Falls. I mean, yeah, it's probably a bit far fetched, but as far as far fetched stories goes, it's a really fun film. You know, I mean, the character of Carl, he's great because it's like he's both likable and unlikable, but you can totally understand his point of view because it's like he just basically wants to try and fulfill his promise to his wife, and there's little moments where it's like sometimes he can be like a grouchy old man, but other times he can be actually a lovable character, and yeah, and the bit with Russell the kid as well. Oh my god, I friggin' love Russell as a character. He's just
I want to
fantastic.
adopt Russell so bad.
Yeah. Oh, and Doug as well.
And
Oh.
Doug. I love Doug.
I actually fantastic love it because in many ways Russell brings out the fathering character in Carl because you know at the end of the day he realizes that Ellie's dream wasn't necessarily even though she wanted to go to Paradise Falls in many ways she'd already fulfilled her dreams with Carl and she wanted him to be happy and everything, and the fact that she couldn't have children herself in many ways Russell's is a way for Carl to like to redeem himself for that. So it's just so many great qualities. It's a great story about redemption and basically showing that you're never too old to fulfill your dreams. But yeah, I've noticed this film also has a very similar sort of theme to The Incredibles, and I've noticed it seems to be a bit of a theme with Pixar movies, because if you think about it, in that film, the bad guy is someone that Cole admired as a younger person, but then he meets him and he's gone absolutely insane. It seems like Pixar has this running theme: don't meet your heroes because they'll just end up disappointing you or probably end up trying to kill you. So,
Right.
yeah, so I really can't say enough good things about this movie. It's absolutely fantastic. So, Morgan, over to you.
Oh gosh, I have never in my life, and still to this day, have done a complete 180 with the character so fast. I remember seeing the previews for Up, and they just showed the previews with him starting to float and Russell's knocking on the door because they hid the whole montage. You had no idea.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, oh, this is a grouchy old man. I came in the theater and I'm slumped. I'm like, I don't like this Carl guy. And then I saw that montage, and it only took 10 minutes of my life, and I am bawling, and I am leaning on Derek, my husband, his boyfriend at the time. I'm like, that poor old man. I'm just bawling. And now that I'm married, it's worse. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we have to go through that? And we get all emotional. So I also cried at the end, which is silly, but there's the scene at the very end where they're eating the ice cream cones.
Oh, yeah.
And they're watching the cars go by, and you're like, okay, happy ending. I'm bawling. And Derek's like, why are you crying now? I was like, oh, Carl's old. And he's Russell's only friend, and Carl's gonna die. I wasn't trying to be morbid. I really wasn't. No. And then Derek's like, oh my god, I never thought of that. And he started crying.
Well, may or may not know this already, but there is actually a theory to say that all of Up, Carl's already dead, and this is basically his journey to the afterlife. So
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, I can take that or leave it. I mean, I personally think there are a few flaws in that, but you know that's a whole different video for another time. I mean, the point is, I personally saw this film as like a sort of redemption for Carl. I mean, he wanted to fulfill his promise to Ellie, and in the process, he became a much stronger person from it. And it says a lot for a Pixar. It's like when you watch a film and you become emotionally attached to a house. Like and when the house finally falls down, you're like,
that was
oh,
bad.
Yeah, but and I've got to say, I love the dogs as well. The dogs were really funny as well.
The dogs are great.
Squirrel.
Doug is great. I also think it's so beautiful, and it doesn't go really into detail in this, but you don't know a lot about Russell's dad. You just know he's absent.
Oh yeah.
And his dad's supposed to go to the ceremony, and he doesn't. But Russell's like the sweetest kid,
Aww.
and it doesn't. You can tell it doesn't bother him.
Yeah.
But that's something I think a lot of kids go through, maybe a lack of a parent. And Carl kind of was a foster to that. So I think Russell also needed Carl, just like Carl needed Russell. So I think that's a really sweet, like when the Ellie badge ceremony. Oh,
yeah.
Russell's never gonna forget that.
Yeah.
His whole little life. So I guess the teacher means like, oh.
I think that's probably. Sorry,
you need role models in your life. I mean, that's just what I was going to say. You definitely need adult role models, and I think Carl would be a really good role model for anybody.
I think that's probably what's great for the appeal of Up, because it has a lot of real themes to it. Like you say, a lot of people probably go through that. Like they lose a loved one, or they don't have like a family member or something like that. So it really hits home, and that what I think is great for the appeal of it. It's like it has so much real emotions, and a lot of people generally can relate to it. So. That's why I personally think Up is and always will be. I mean, here's the sad thing, because until I saw Inside Out, I was very tempted to make that my favourite Pixar film of all time, but no, I have to go with Up, because Up is just basically an absolutely fantastic movie. It has so much heart. It's a perfect story. It has great characters. It has its funny moments as well.
And the adventure is amazing.
Exactly, yeah. The adventure is fantastic. I would happily go through the adventure of that. And on a side note, on the DVD, you actually get to see them actually visiting the place that they Fighter for Paradise Falls, and
I've seen that.
Yeah, that in itself is just fantastic. The fact they tried painstakingly to create every single detail from that, and the fact it just jumps out at you, it's just incredible. So, yeah, for me personally, and Morgan clearly agrees with me on this one, Up, best Pixar film of all time. And in my opinion, the best animated film of all time.
Up is so high, it's in outer space.
Okay, so that's our list, and that is the top 15 Pixar films according to me and Morgan. Did you agree with us? Did you disagree with us? Please do comment, like, and subscribe to this channel, and do please share this video as well as much as possible, and tell everyone about it. That's our list, so it just leaves me to thank Morgan for joining me on this incredible journey. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh, I had a good time, and I look forward to more journeys with Dan and I. We're going to kind of be doing some more stuff in the future, and if you like Disney, you better stay tuned to us around March.
Oh yes, yes. If you thought March Disney Villain Madness was fun, then wait to see what we've got planned for that next one. We'll be
Uh,
revealing something about that very possibly in the future, so just keep an
yeah.
eye on that. But we've certainly also been talking about doing a few other sort of lists on up together as well. So we've also got a few other, maybe some other top 10s or some top 15s or top 5 things we'll be doing together. So
Mhm.
watch this space. But
Yeah, and it's not going to be all Pixar or Disney.
no, we're going to try and mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
But I know, obviously, as you probably know, Morgan's a huge fan of anime, and I really like anime as
Hmm.
well. And we could probably got a few other things we can look at as well. So watch
Definitely.
this space. We will have plenty of things coming up. But for the meantime, it just leaves for me to say thank you very much to Morgan for joining me on this journey. Thank you so much to you guys for watching. And until next time, it's goodbye from Dan.
And sayonara from Morgan.
Thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you. Take
Speak soon.
care.
No problem. Bye. Take care.
Bye.